Hey there. Welcome to a deep dive. This one is going to make you see language in a whole new light. We're going deep into these LLMs,
Yeah.
large language models.
Everyone's talking about them.
Exactly. But we're going to be looking at them through a fascinating lens, chemistry.
It might sound a little unusual at first, but
Right.
trust me, this is going to get really, really interesting.
Who would have thought that words and molecules could have so much in common?
Yeah.
Our guide for this deep dive is an academic paper. It's called Textual Chemistry, an analogy to synthetic chemistry. So get ready for some serious aha moments.
Yeah, the core idea is that just like chemistry has its basic building blocks, atoms,
Mm-hmm.
language can be seen the same way,
Okay.
with words as the fundamental units.
So words are like our textual atoms. I can kind of see where this is going.
Exactly. And just like atoms combine to form more complex structures,
Mhm.
molecules,
Yeah.
words come together to create phrases and sentences. Grammar becomes the set of rules that governs how these textual molecules interact and bond.
That makes sense. But how does this relate to LLMs? I mean, they're not literally mixing words in a test tube, are they?
Not quite, but the way LLMs process language is surprisingly similar. They break down text into these fundamental components,
Yeah.
words, and their relationships to each other, and then use algorithms to create new meaning.
Okay.
Almost like synthesizing a new compound.
So they're like superpowered language chefs,
Yeah.
taking these raw ingredients and whipping up something totally new.
That's a great way to put it. The paper takes this analogy even further, actually.
Okay.
It compares text generation to get this chemical reactions.
Now that's what I call thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
But give me an example. How can writing be like a chemical reaction?
Well, think about paraphrasing.
Okay.
You're taking an existing sentence and restructuring it,
Uh-huh.
maybe using different words, but the underlying meaning stays the same. It's like changing the molecular structure of a substance, but you're preserving its chemical properties.
Okay, so it's not about changing the fundamental meaning, but about transforming the way it's expressed.
Precisely. And this is how LLMs are being used to translate languages, summarize huge amounts of text, even write different kinds of creative content. They're transforming language in ways we never thought possible.
Now, if LLMs are carrying out these textual reactions, what acts as the catalyst? In chemistry, catalysts speed up reactions,
You
right?
got it. In the world of LLMs, algorithms, especially those powerful transformers, take on the role of catalysts. They help LLMs manipulate those textual molecules more efficiently, enabling them to generate new forms of language with incredible speed and flexibility.
So are you saying that by tweaking these algorithms, we can essentially control the chemical reactions of language and create entirely new forms of expression?
That's the incredible potential we're talking about. Just like chemists can design compounds with specific properties for a particular purpose, we could prompt an LLM to say, design a new programming language optimized for quantum computing.
Wow.
That's the level of textual synthesis we're talking about.
That's mind-boggling. It's like we're giving LLMs a set of linguistic building blocks and like a blueprint, and they're constructing entire language structures from scratch.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure these structures are sound? I mean, in chemistry, you have to analyze compounds to understand their properties, right?
You're hitting on another fascinating parallel. The paper compares text mining and analysis to the process of decomposition in chemistry.
Okay, so how does that work? Are LLMs breaking down complex texts into smaller, more digestible bits?
Exactly. Just like a chemist might break down a complex molecule to understand its properties, LLMs can analyze the molecular structure of a text to extract its core meaning.
Okay.
Think of something like sentiment analysis, where an LLM figures out the emotional tone of a piece of writing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that require a really deep understanding of not just the words, but the nuances of language, like sarcasm or metaphor?
Absolutely. LLMs are becoming increasingly sophisticated in their ability to understand those subtleties. They can even analyze the way sentences are structured, what the paper calls parsing, to get at the heart of what's being said.
So they're not just spitting out random words,
Yeah.
but actually processing language with a level of depth that's approaching, dare I say, human understanding.
It really is remarkable how far these models have come. And remember, this is just scratching the surface of what textual chemistry might hold.
This is all so incredibly exciting. I'm already seeing language in a whole new way.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away, let's talk about how we can make sure these LLM creations are high quality and, actually useful.
You're raising a crucial point. Just like in chemistry, where you go through a purification process to refine compounds, LLMs need to go through a similar refining stage.
So it's like taking that rough first draft and polishing it till it shines.
Exactly. LLMs don't just produce perfect text on the first try. They need to go through processes like fine-tuning and adaptation. It's like removing the impurities so that the final output is clear, relevant, and free of errors.
So we're talking about a constant cycle of creation, analysis, and refinement. It sounds like this textual chemistry thing is a lot more complex than just telling an LLM to write me a poem.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes it so fascinating. We're really just at the beginning of understanding the full potential of this approach.
Well, I, for one, am hooked. This deep dive has opened my eyes to a whole new world. But before we go any further, I think it's time to pause and really unpack what this all means.
Yeah,
The bigger picture of textual chemistry. What does it mean for how we understand language, communication, and the future?
I completely agree. Let's take a moment to reflect on the implications of all this, because what we're talking about here is nothing short of a potential paradigm shift in how we interact with language itself.
I can't wait to dive deeper into that.
So we've established this pretty fascinating parallel between the way chemists work with molecules and how LLMs manipulate language. It's a powerful analogy that helps us grasp the potential of these LLMs.
It really is. But what are some of the implications of this whole textual chemistry idea? Where does this new way of thinking about LLMs lead us?
Oh, it opens up a world of possibilities. One of the most exciting is the potential for creating entirely new forms of communication.
Right.
Imagine, like, languages specifically designed for certain tasks,
Okay.
a language for scientific communication, another for expressing emotions, even one for, like, coding complex algorithms.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But I
Di-
mean, when you consider how LLMs are already pushing the boundaries of what's possible with language,
Yeah.
maybe it's not so far-fetched.
Exactly. And just like chemists design materials with specific properties like
Yeah.
strength, flexibility, conductivity, we could use LLMs to create languages with specific communicative properties.
So instead of just working with the languages we already have,
Yeah.
we could create languages optimized for different tasks, different audiences, different goals.
Hmm.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is. And it raises some big questions about the future of language.
Yeah.
Will we see a surge of new languages, each filling a specific niche? Could these languages eventually merge and evolve, creating entirely new hybrid forms of communication? It's like we're witnessing the birth of a new linguistic ecosystem.
That's a wild thought. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. What about the here and now? What are some immediate practical ways that this whole textual chemistry is being applied?
Well, one area where it's already having a huge impact is machine translation.
Okay.
LLMs are becoming incredibly good at translating languages with a level of nuance and accuracy that was previously unimaginable. You've probably noticed translation software getting much better in recent years.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like having a personal interpreter in your pocket.
Exactly. And as these models continue to improve, we can expect even more seamless communication across languages. Imagine a world with fewer language barriers, where people from different cultures can understand each other more easily.
No, that's a future I can get behind. But what about other areas? Like education or research?
Yeah.
How can this textual chemistry approach help us learn and discover new knowledge?
Imagine LLMs that can analyze vast amounts of scientific literature,
Right.
pull out the key insights, and present them in these concise summaries that anyone can understand.
Okay.
Think about it. Instead of spending hours poring over dense research papers,
Right.
you could get the gist of the latest scientific discoveries in minutes.
So it's like having a super-powered research assistant that can sift through mountains of information and highlight the most important nuggets. That would be a game changer, especially for students and researchers.
Exactly. And this ability to analyze and synthesize information could revolutionize education. Imagine personalized learning platforms that tailor explanations and feedback to each student's individual needs and learning style.
That would make learning so much more engaging and effective. It could really level the playing field and make quality education accessible to everyone.
And it's not just about learning facts and figures.
Right.
LLMs could also help us develop critical thinking skills by presenting different perspectives, challenging our assumptions, and encouraging us to think deeply about complex issues.
So it's not just about making learning easier, it's about making us better thinkers. That's a powerful idea. It seems like this whole textual chemistry is really about expanding our cognitive abilities and empowering us to engage with information in new ways. It's a pretty optimistic view of the future. But I have to ask, are there any potential downsides to all of this?
Oh, sure.
With any powerful technology, there are always risks.
You're absolutely right. It's crucial to be aware of the potential challenges and proceed with caution. As this technology advances, we need to ask ourselves some tough questions.
Like what? What are some of the things we need to be thinking about as textual chemistry becomes more prevalent?
Well, one crucial question is, what does it mean to be human in a world where language, something that has always been so uniquely human, can be generated and manipulated by machines?
Whoa, that's a deep one. It's like we're redefining the boundaries of what it means to be human. Are we going to need to rethink our relationship with language?
It certainly challenges us to consider the evolving relationship between humans and technology. We're used to thinking of language as something inherently human, but what happens when machines can create and understand language on par with, or even exceeding our own abilities?
It's a mind-bending concept. Are we going to have to learn how to speak machine to keep up?
That's where things get really interesting. What if, instead of us learning machine language, the machines learn to better understand our nuances, our humor, our emotions? Imagine LLMs that can not only generate text, but also truly grasp the subtleties of human communication.
So instead of seeing LLMs as replacements for human communication, we could see them as these powerful tools that help us communicate more effectively.
Yes.
It's like having a universal translator that can bridge any communication gap.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just translation. Think about LLMs that can help us craft more persuasive arguments, write more compelling stories, or even compose music that resonates deeply with human emotions.
Mhm.
It's about using this technology to augment our own creative and communicative abilities.
That's a much more positive way of looking at it. Instead of fearing these advancements, we can embrace the potential they hold for improving human connection and understanding. But there's still a part of me that wonders,
What's that?
if LLMs can create new languages, could they eventually create languages that humans can't even understand? Like a secret language only machines can decipher?
That's a fascinating question, and honestly, it's one we don't have a definitive answer to yet. LLMs are already capable of generating text that is grammatically correct and semantically meaningful,
Right.
even if it doesn't always make sense to us humans.
So it's like they're speaking in code and we're left trying to crack the cipher.
In a way, yes. It raises all sorts of intriguing questions about the nature of communication and the future of language. Could these new languages eventually evolve to a point where they surpass human language in terms of complexity and expressiveness? Could they even give rise to new forms of consciousness?
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. I need a moment to process all of this. It's incredible to think that we're living through such a pivotal moment in the history of language and technology.
It is a truly extraordinary time, and I, for one, am excited to see where this journey takes us.
Me too. This deep dive into the world of textual chemistry has been a wild ride. It's amazing to think about how language, this fundamental aspect of human communication, is being transformed by artificial intelligence. But before we wrap things up completely, I'm curious to hear your take on the future of textual chemistry. What are some of the specific advancements you see on the horizon?
Well, we've touched on some pretty mind-blowing possibilities already, but what really excites me is the potential for personalized communication.
Okay.
Imagine a world where LLM that can analyze your individual communication style, your interests, even your values, and then tailor messages specifically to you.
It's an intriguing idea. Instead of getting these generic emails or marketing messages,
Right.
you'd receive communication that's perfectly tuned to your preferences.
Yeah. It would be like having a personal communication assistant that helps you connect with others in a more meaningful way.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just marketing, right?
Absolutely. Think about how this could revolutionize education. LLMs could provide students with personalized explanations and feedback,
Mm-hmm.
making learning more engaging and effective. Or imagine healthcare professionals using LLMs to communicate complex medical information to patients in a way that's easy to understand.
It's like having a custom-made language for every situation. What about the creative side of things, though? Could LLMs actually enhance human creativity rather than replace it?
That's another area where I see huge potential. Imagine writers, artists, musicians working alongside LLMs as creative partners.
Yeah.
LLMs could help generate new ideas, explore different artistic styles, and push the boundaries of creative expression.
It's like having a brainstorming partner who can tap you into an infinite well of ideas and possibilities. Instead of seeing LLMs as a threat to human creativity, we could see them as tools that help us unlock new levels of creative potential.
Exactly. It's about collaboration, not competition. This kind of human-machine partnership could lead to entirely new art forms and creative expressions that we can't even imagine yet.
This has been an incredible journey into the world of textual chemistry. It's amazing to think about how language, this fundamental part of what makes us human, is being transformed by AI.
It really is a paradigm shift.
Mm.
And as with any powerful new technology, it's crucial that we proceed with both a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of caution.
So as we stand at the cusp of this new era of language and technology, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to ponder?
I think the most important thing is to approach this new frontier with an open mind and a willingness to embrace the possibilities, while also being mindful of the potential challenges. It's a balancing act, but it's one that will shape the future of communication and human expression.
Beautifully said. And I think the analogy of chemistry is so fitting here. Just like chemistry can be used to create incredible things, it can also be misused. It's up to us to ensure that textual chemistry is used responsibly and ethically for the benefit of all humankind.
I completely agree. The future of language is in our hands, and it's up to us to write the next chapter.
Well, on that thought-provoking note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But I want to leave our listeners with one final question to ponder. If LLMs are already capable of creating new forms of language, could we one day see the emergence of languages that humans can't even understand? Languages that exist solely in the digital realm, spoken only by machines.
That's a question that sparks the imagination. It's certainly a possibility, and it challenges us to think about the nature of communication and the future of language in a whole new way.
It's mind-boggling to think about, isn't it? We've only scratched the surface of what textual chemistry might hold, and the journey ahead promises to be full of surprises.
It's a journey I'm excited to be a part of.
Me too. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the fascinating world of textual chemistry. It's been an eye-opening experience.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listeners, keep those minds curious, keep exploring, and keep asking the big questions. Until next time.